What if I told you you could make diving more fun? Get a closer look at interesting creatures. Make your equipment last longer. Use less air. And have more vigor and energy on every dive.
Well, you can, because these are the rewards of peak buoyancy control. Peak buoyancy control means just what it says, that you're in control.
You descend and ascend slowly and easily. You make effortless safety stops, even without a line. You move along the reef with precision and fluidity, blending in with the contours and life rhythms of the environment. You don't stir up the bottom and reduce visibility. The only trace you leave is a disappearing trail of bubbles. With peak buoyancy control, you hover along walls and drop-offs, never compromising your planned depth and bottom time. You glide through the water sleek and streamlined, conserving energy and air. Diving becomes nearly effortless. You save your suit, your gear, and fragile underwater life from damaging encounters. Your fins don't touch the reef, and you avoid accidental stings and scrapes. So what type of diving do you like best? Peak Performance Buoyancy will help you do it better.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Every diver wants better buoyancy control, but not every diver knows how to get it. That's what we're going to show you. We've turned to some of the world's best divers, PADI master instructors, to share with you their secrets for peak performance buoyancy.
Does this resemble your diving? Relaxed, moving through the water with little effort, maintaining a constant depth while swimming, and hovering, descending, and ascending slowly, in control, breathing normally.
If so, you're on the right track. If not, let's see what you have to do to dive like this. So where do we start? Right here, with proper weighting.
When you dive in warm water, you wear just enough weight for swimsuits, dive skins, or light wetsuits. When you dive in cooler water, you wear enough weight for thick wetsuits or dry suits.
So, if you change your tank, if you change your exposure suit, or you change your environment, like going from fresh to salt water, you need to change the weights you use. Remember, the best divers don't overweight, and if you want peak performance buoyancy, neither will you.
Wearing too much lead drags down the lower half of the body. Adding air to the BCD to compensate floats the upper half. The end result is a near upright position that isn't very streamlined, isn't very comfortable, and encourages a poor kick. Not only does the diver tire quickly from carrying around that excess weight, he has a hard time keeping his fins off the bottom. This diver uses more air, accidentally damages aquatic life, and silts the water. In general, he has less fun. This problem can be magnified by wearing a BCD that's too large, since the diver has to wear more weight than necessary to overcome the buoyancy of the trapped air. If your BCD fits comfortably and can support you at the surface when you're fully equipped, it's probably the right size. If you own your own equipment, you know it fits. Go to your local dive store to find a BCD that's right for the diving you do. Except at the surface, a diver wearing only a swimsuit or skin suit should have only minimal air in his BCD during a dive. If he has to make large adjustments to his buoyancy, he's probably overweighted. It's easy to rely on BCDs too much. Remember, a BCD is not an elevator you inflate to go up and deflate to go down. But if you rely on your BCD to make all your depth adjustments, that's just what it becomes.
But let's get back to proper weighting. How much weight should you be wearing? To find out, do this.
After you've adjusted your weight system, enter the water in full equipment, including your tank. Release all the air from your BCD while holding a full breath. If you float above eye level, you probably need to add more weight. If you sink below eye level, you're overweighted. Adjust your weight until you float comfortably at eye level.
Good dive?
Great dive.
Great. Something else to consider is that during your dive, your tank may become more buoyant. Why?
The compressed air inside has weight. As you breathe the air, the tank becomes more buoyant. By the end of a dive, it can become as much as 5 pounds, 2.3 kilos, more buoyant. This added buoyancy could make a safety stop difficult. So check your buoyancy at the end of your dive to make sure you have the correct amount of lead to compensate for the air you used. Now that you've got proper weighting, let's work on body position. If you want to be more efficient underwater, you have to be more like a fish. This means floating comfortably and naturally in a horizontal position. One of the ways we accomplish this is through careful distribution of our weight. Most fish naturally float in a horizontal position. We're not fish, so some of us tend to float head down, some of us tend to float head up, even though we're wearing the right amount of weight.
We have to adjust for our individual body composition. In other words, the distribution of our lean mass and fat tissue.
Again, equipment plays a part. Some fins and boots can make your feet slightly buoyant. To find out if your fins float, put them in shallow water. If they float and your feet are too buoyant, you may want to try fins that don't float or wear light ankle weights to fine-tune your position in the water. The position of your weights affects your underwater balance. For example, sliding your weights towards your weight belt buckle can help you counterbalance a heavy tank and can keep you comfortably upright while hovering vertically, like you might do along a wall or steep drop-off.
If you find your weight belt uncomfortably heavy, you might want to consider a BCD with an integrated weight system. Integrated weight system BCDs allow you to take the weight off your belt, put them in your BCD where it still can be dumped in an emergency.
Many divers, particularly dry suit divers, find that placing about half their weight in their BCDs and half on their belt is a comfortable way to distribute the lead. It also enables you to become buoyant in an emergency by ditching either one. Dry suit divers tend to wear the most weight because depending on the type of suit they're wearing, they often add air to their suits to avoid squeeze and increase warmth. Since air can create buoyancy in all parts of the suit, dry suit divers like to distribute their weights to avoid a heavy weight belt. Ankle weights are another way to get lead off your belt, but don't get carried away. Wear just enough weight on your ankles to offset the buoyancy of your feet and legs without restricting your kick. Streamlining is another technique that helps you move more naturally underwater. Even the awkward-looking lobster becomes torpedo-like as it streamlines its long antenna and gangly legs. Look at this diver's equipment. Everything's streamlined. Hoses, gauges, alternate air sources, everything's neatly attached to the BCD and tucked close to his body. You can use clips like these to keep hoses close to your body and reduce drag. Some divers run their submersible pressure gauge hose through the BCD sleeve. This keeps it close at hand without dangling and dragging on the bottom.
Owning your own equipment allows you to customize your gear for better streamlining. Another part of achieving peak performance buoyancy is getting control of your breathing.
As you recall, your breathing pattern affects your lung volume, and lung volume affects buoyancy. With peak buoyancy control, you tend to rise slightly as you inhale and sink slightly as you exhale. It may help to use visualization techniques before a dive to help you relax and breathe properly. Before your dive, imagine yourself underwater. You're aware of your surroundings. You're in control of your buoyancy. Your breathing is relaxed. Think of yourself moving calmly and confidently through the water like a manta. Your breathing slows and your buoyancy becomes smooth and steady. You feel at home underwater. As you fine-tune your breathing control, you remember the most important rule of scuba: Never hold your breath. We've talked about equipment and state of mind, but physical well-being also plays an important role in peak buoyancy control. Recreational diving shouldn't be a strenuous activity, but getting in better shape, particularly in terms of cardiovascular fitness, will increase your stamina. And since you don't get winded as easily, your breath control improves. As you become more physically fit, you may lose fat and gain muscle, and need to change the amount of weight you normally use. Lean mass is more negatively buoyant than fat. As you learn, determining the proper amount of weight for a change in body composition is easy and well worth the effort, given the benefits of being in shape.
The more you dive, the more opportunities you'll have to achieve peak buoyancy control. But what if you haven't been diving for a while, or if you're using equipment that you've never used before? Well, here we can take a cue from athletes.
Just as runners stretch their legs to warm up, you may want to practice your buoyancy control skills as a warm-up before diving. The best dive site in which to practice your buoyancy control skills is in water about 15 feet, 5 meters deep. Ideally, you should be in a pool or over a flat, sandy bottom, far enough away from fragile aquatic life to avoid damaging it while you hone your technique. After you've come to rest on the bottom, get neutrally buoyant. If you're wearing a wetsuit, slowly inflate your BCD in small puffs until you barely rise off the bottom when you inhale. If you're wearing a dry suit, you'll want to add air to your suit. If you're not wearing a wetsuit or a dry suit, you should be neutrally buoyant with little or no air in your BCD. Rise up until you're a few feet off the bottom. If you're neutrally buoyant, you should be able to handle minor depth changes without using your BCD, no matter what type of exposure suit you're wearing. With your legs straight, bent, or in a cross-legged position, hover as motionless as possible. Remember, you'll rise slightly as you inhale and descend slightly as you exhale. Now hover in a horizontal position for a while. Get to the point where you can maintain both positions for a minute or two at a time. When you achieve this, focus on how your breathing affects your buoyancy. Long, slow, deep inhalations should be followed by long, slow exhalations without major depth changes or buoyancy adjustments. If you're having trouble maintaining your depth, remember to relax or slow down your breathing. At the end of your practice dive, rise slowly, no faster than 60 feet, 18 meters per minute, to a depth of 15 feet, 5 meters. Practice hovering at this depth for 3 minutes, the time of a standard safety stop. If you don't have a visual reference, like a line or wall, monitor your depth gauge carefully. If you need to, vent or inflate your BCD to fine-tune your buoyancy, but try to use breath control as much as possible to maintain your depth.
There you are, Richard.
Thank you, Joanne. Well, it sounds like a little bit of work, but the rewards of peak performance buoyancy will make you glad you took the effort.
You'll avoid damaging fragile reef dwellers, and you'll seem less threatening to timid fish and other aquatic life. You'll have more photo opportunities. Peak performance buoyancy helps you avoid disturbing bottom sediment, which maximizes visibility. Once you've adjusted your buoyancy for the depth you'll be diving, you can use breath control for fine-tuning. If you want to get a little closer to the reef, just exhale for a slight buoyancy change. If you're properly weighted, you won't need to vent your BCD. With peak buoyancy control, you can concentrate on your photography without bumping fragile marine life. If you're new to underwater photography or are using equipment that's unfamiliar to you, practice diving with your camera or housing in an area where you won't damage anything. You may even want to consider a course in underwater photography, which gives you an excellent opportunity to practice these skills.
Peak buoyancy control improves your efficiency underwater, and you can reduce your diving efforts still further by improving your kick.
Your leg muscles are the largest in your body and require a great deal of energy. Developing a more efficient kick helps you conserve energy and cut down on air consumption. Pros know that long, slow kicks are more efficient and less tiring than rapid, jerky strokes and make diving easier. They also glide after each kick. While they're gliding, many pros scull their fins to keep coasting with little effort. You can also scull with your fins to back up without using your hands.
Now that we've looked at the key components of peak buoyancy control, let's take a dive and try those techniques together.
Proper weighting includes a buoyancy check, so make sure you're wearing no more than you need for your equipment and environment. If you're not sure how much weight to use, do a buoyancy check, and don't forget to allow for changes in tank buoyancy during your dive. Use your BCD only to fine-tune your buoyancy and to give you surface support. The position and distribution of your weight affects body attitude and comfort. Streamline your equipment for peak buoyancy control. You'll glide through the water with little exertion and use less air. Use visual imagery to relax your breathing and move more gracefully through the water. Stay physically fit to increase stamina and boost energy levels. You'll be less likely to get winded, and good breath control will be easier. Practice your buoyancy control skills often, and remember to reevaluate your performance from time to time.
Great dive.
That was great. There you have it. Peak performance buoyancy is the foundation for diving excellence. Master it, and soon you'll be diving like the pros.